The Elroq is Skoda's first fully electric compact SUV and thus represents the locally emission-free counterpart to the Karoq. In terms of size and cost, it is positioned below its electric brother, the Enyaq, which has the same 77 kWh battery. For a base price of €43,900 for the 85 variant, you get a well-equipped 4+1 seater with a range of around 475 km in the Adria-Czech Eco-Test. Numerous assistance systems are standard, which on the one hand make driving noticeably easier. The large head-up display with augmented reality function, and on the other hand significantly increase active vehicle safety. Travel comfort is surprisingly high for this class, especially if you order the optional adaptive dampers. In typical Skoda fashion, there are numerous simply clever solutions, such as the additional compartment storage systems distributed throughout the vehicle, or the obligatory eye scraper, where is to be found in the tailgate. Operation is quite fluid once you have allowed yourself some time to get used to it. The haptic quick access buttons below the central display are a clear advantage in the Elroq's otherwise primarily touch and swipe based operating environment. Overall, Skoda has achieved a very solid and convincing result with the Elroq. Competitors include the BMW iX1, BYD Atto, Hyundai Kona, Kia EV3 and Mercedes-Benz EQA. Let's have a better look. The front seats offer pleasant comfort and, as in the test car, are optionally electrically adjustable. They provide good lateral support without feeling cramped. The height can be adjusted as standard, and the electrical adjustment also includes tilt adjustment. Two-way lumbar supports are standard. At an additional cost, they can be replaced by a four-way version with electrical adjustment. The optional lumbar support also provides a rudimentary massage function. The positions of the electric seats can be stored in two memory locations, each memory function. The center armrest can be adjusted in height. There are lots of handy storage cubbies between the Skoda Elroq's front seats. Plus, its door bins are large and lined with felt, so your possessions don't rattle around when you are driving. The glove compartment is quite small, not lockable and not climate controlled. At least you get a decent felt lining and lighting. You won't find glass holder in the headliner, but you do get a small folding pocket at the bottom left next to the steering wheel. Interior quality is for the most part very good, with soft touch plastic on the upper part of the dashboard and the tops of the doors. There is padded fabric with contrast stitching on the lower part of dashboard and center console. The Canton audio system with 8 speakers is optional. The interior's material appearance is high quality at the front, with partially foamed door trim and padding in the center tunnel in the knee area. The driving position in the Skoda Elroq is generally excellent. True, some alternatives including the Kia EV3 and Tesla Model Y sit you up a little higher to give you more an SUV feel, but the relationship between the seat pedals and the steering wheel is spot on. The hood's locking mechanism, which is only secured by a retaining rod, seems somewhat outdated, but all in all are slight deficiencies, or rather potential for improvement. People up to 1.95 m tall can definitely sit comfortably in the front of the Elroq. The only limitation is legroom. Theoretically, headroom could even accommodate people up to 2.20 m tall. The Elroq feels very roomy up front, thanks in part to the large amount of glass around the cabin, so visibility is great too. Only the bulky center console slightly detracts from the subjectively good impression of spaciousness. Plus points go to the configurable ambient lighting. The cockpit is clearly structured. At its center is the standard 13-inch touchscreen infotainment system. The comparatively small 5-inch digital instrument cluster behind the steering wheel can be optionally upgraded with a head-up display. Both the design and layout of the dashboard, as well as the basic operating system, are largely identical to its bigger brother, the Enyaq. It's therefore not surprising that the main control mechanisms also seem familiar. Manual steering wheel adjustment, the start button on the steering column, reminiscent of a classic ignition lock, and the gear selector knob in the center console are quick to find and intuitive to use. The same applies to the light buttons, which are somewhat low-slung and barely visible while driving. The tactile quick select buttons below the center air vents for climate control, driver assistance, rear window hinting, and windshield ventilation, among others, represent a significant simplification of operation. However, they still cannot compensate for the fact that additional operating steps, including turning away from the vehicle, are necessary for essential basic functions. The touch surface permanently displayed in the lower area of the center display for temperature, seat heating, and the climate detail menu help to avoid laborious scrolling and sweeping, at least for frequently used functions. The lack of a multimedia displayed in the already quite small and therefore poorly legible instrument cluster is certainly debatable, but Skoda could easily upgrade the touch volume bar below the infotainment display to a foolproof rotary dial. After a definitely necessary adjustment period with the Elroq, you can master the different control levels and the quite impressive range of functions. The head-up display with augmented reality function is an eye-catcher and is supported by the information appropriately projected onto the windshield while driving. Skoda delivers the Elroq with a comprehensive multimedia package. This includes a navigation system, USB-C ports, DAB and digital radio reception, and an audio system with 8 speakers. The premium version from Canton with 4 additional sound sources is optional. LoRa, the Skoda voice assistant, supported by the AI service ChatGPT, is also on board. Skoda Infotainment Online is included for the first 3 years. Online maps updates are available, charging stations and parking spaces are easier to find thanks to internet support, and the traffic situation is available in real time. A Wi-Fi hotspot can also be set up so that passengers can continue to surf the internet connectivity. Both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, both in wireless version, are standard. The base model is called the 52. Its interior is upholstered in the fine fabrics thanks to the studio designed selection. In the higher models, it transforms into a synthetic leather and fabric interior. We are already comfortably accommodated in the standard seats. The even more comfortable comfort seats with lumbar support are standard with the 60 model. The single-zone automatic climate control, however, is only upgraded to a dual-zone Climatronic with the 85 model. In the compact class, we can still accept this, also because Skoda equips the Elroq with a large 13-inch infotainment system as standard. By comparison, it's not available in the Skoda Karoq, even at an additional cost. The Elroq system responds quickly, integrates smartphones wirelessly, and is easy to use. You barely have to use the touchscreen for common functions. There are practical direct access buttons. Other functions are easily accessible on the touchscreen. One exception is the volume control. This is laboriously controlled using the touchscreen sliders, or more easily using the rotary dial on the steering wheel. The driver and front passenger get plenty of space, but it's in the back that the Elroq really impresses. Even a 2-meter tall will have plenty of head and legroom to spare with sitting behind a similarly tall driver. The rear seats themselves offer more under-thigh support than you will find in the competition. The rear seats are not quite as comfortable, but they are satisfactorily shaped. There are height-adjustable standard headrests for the outer seats, while the center seat is only a sit-down place with less padding and a lower height. If the front seats are adjusted for a 185 tall person, the legroom behind them is still sufficient for a tall passenger. Headroom is more of a limitation for about 2-meter tall passengers. Subjectively, the space doesn't immediately feel that spacious, as the high side line of the body and the comparatively narrow side windows somewhat limit the feeling of space. The ambient lighting, which is also installed as standard in the rear, is pleasing. The rear seat is a bit tight for 3 adults side by side, but 2 people can comfortably cover long journeys. The Elroq is content with the usual configuration options of a compact vehicle. The rear seat can either be moved or not removed. Only an asymmetrically split folding of the backrest is possible. And obviously in the rear, Skoda has opted for a cost-effective increased use of hard plastic. The trunk volume is a bit small at 470 liters. After removing the parcel shelf and loading the vehicle to the roof, 1580 liters can be accommodated. There is room for another 45 liters under the loading floor. The optional electric tailgate with foot kick opening no longer has a manual pull handle inside. People over 1.90 m tall are at risk of hitting their heads on the tailgate or the freestanding tailgate lock. The loading sill height from the road is just under 70 centimeters. On the positive side, there is virtually no step down to the trunk floor. The loading hatch is generously dimensioned and the storage space is illuminated twice. On the left side of the trunk and on the right side of the tailgate, a 12-volt outlet in the luggage department is standard. For spontaneous loading of tall items, the parcel shelf can be simply cleverly clamped parallel behind the rear seat backrest. Alternatively, the shelf can also be secured as a second loading level in the trunk. Disappointingly, unlike the EV3 or the Model Y, the Elroq doesn't have additional storage space under its bonnet. Therefore, we recommend adding the reasonably priced transport package, which includes a net under the parcel shelf designed to store your charging cable. It also adds a height adjustable boot floor, which in its highest position gives you a more underfloor storage and reduces the size of the lip at the boot entrance so that it's easier to load and unload heavy items. There are hooks, straps and useful smaller storage areas to both the left and the right of the main load bay, and the parcel shelf itself can be set at normal or reduced height to be used as a kind of split level divider, if you prefer, or even clipped in almost vertically to keep taller items from falling into the passenger compartment. The Elroq's rear seat can be folded down asymmetrically from the interior. Folding it down from the trunk is extremely cumbersome. Caution is advised when repositioning the rear seat, as the side belts can easily get caught in the backrest locks. While there are strap fastenings, they can easily be forgotten in the heat of the moment. There is no practical storage space under the front hook. In the middle of the rear seat backrest, there is a through loading option for long items at 20 to 40 centimeters. The opening is manageable. A rail system on the trunk floor isn't available even for an additional charge. However, there are plastic brackets that can be attached to the cargo area using Velcro. The tested 85-liter version of the Elroq comes with an electric motor in the rear producing 286 horsepower and delivering its maximum torque of 545 Nm to the rear wheels without the option of gear shifting. This should enable the sprint from standstill to highway speed in 6.6 seconds. Propulsion is electronically limited to 180 km an hour. Skoda promises an all-wheel drive version with an additional electric motor on the front axle in the course of 2025. But even the test car with rear-wheel drive delivers first-class performance, and the acceleration from 80 to 100 km is just as swift, measured at 4.1 seconds. The Elroq achieves a very good average consumption of 18.2 kWh per 100 km. This also takes into account charging losses. 87.11 kWh are required to fully charge the 77 kWh usable battery capacity. Taking into account the German electricity mix, this results in a very good CO2 footprint of 91 grams per kilometer. The range of the test vehicle is thus approximately 475 kilometers. Let's take the Elroq for a ride and see what it can do. There are three versions of the Skoda Elroq to choose from, called the 50, 60 and 85. They are all rear-wheel drive single motor cars and produce 168, 201 and 282 brake horsepower respectively. Pre-selecting the desired gear is easy with a small knob. The layout is basically self-explanatory. Switching between forward and reverse is very quick. The test car steering wheel features optional paddle shifters available with a sport trim package starting at €960, which are used to adjust the recuperation levels. A total of 5 different modes can be selected: automatic, light, medium, strong and off. As an alternative to D mode, B mode can also be selected for forward driving. This increases recuperation, which is useful, for example, when driving downhill. An auto hold function is standard. The drive system runs absolutely quietly and with low vibration at every speed. Even under stroke acceleration, no disturbances reach the occupants. Acceleration is smooth up to high speeds. Thanks to the very lively electric drive, the Elroq is definitely fun to drive, especially when sport mode is engaged. The drive responds very directly to throttle inputs. The Elroq is fundamentally very well tuned. The handling always remains safely controllable, with the expected tendency to understeer at the limit, although brisk driving is barely prevented by the sensitively intervening ESP. It follows steering inputs spontaneously and quickly settles back into a straight line position. When cornering dynamically, especially in combination with uneven road surfaces, there is quite noticeable body movement, a result of the comfort-oriented chassis design. Straight line stability is almost flawless, which makes longer highway stretches relaxed. Actually, perceptible wheel slip is a foreign concept to the Elroq. Only when boldly pulling away on slippery roads can you elicit a brief scraping of the rear wheels. The traction control intervenes quickly and adjusts reliably. In our evasive maneuver test, the Skoda performed well and completed the maneuver safely. At a slightly too high speed, it pushes over the front wheels and brakes as necessary. The finally regulated ESP assists and the steering doesn't stiffen. The Elroq isn't a dynamic talent, but that doesn't live up to its claim. Overall, a suitable and safe setup. The test car is equipped with the optional progressive steering system, available with the Sport Trim package for €960. It features a variable ratio depending on the steering angle, is less direct around the center position, and becomes more direct with increasing steering angle. The steering is designed to be light but with good feedback, even around the center position. The steering is precise during spontaneous turning and in curves, and after the steering maneuver, the steering returns to its neutral position. The steering wheel rotates 3 full turns from the left to the right. The brake pedal response and control are initially quite unusual and take some time to get used to it. The pedal feel is synthetic, with no clear pressure point and uneven force across the pedal travel. Moderate braking is handled by the electric motor, which acts as a generator. If the Elroq needs to stop as quickly as possible, it needs an average of 34.3 meters, average of 10 braking applications. That's a very good result. The drum brakes on the rear axle may initially seem underpowered given the vehicle's weight of well over 2 tons, but however, the consistent braking performance even under heavy load proves otherwise. Furthermore, the electric motor on the rear axle can also brake, allowing the drum brakes to receive additional support. At the same time, there is the great advantage that, unlike disc brakes, drum brakes don't deteriorate as quickly if they are used too little. The Elroq already comes very well equipped with assistance systems as standard. Their functionality offers little cause for criticism. Skoda charges extra for the head-up display, adaptive cruise control, traditional cruise control is standard, emergency assist, and highway assist. Travel assist, highway assist available with the clever trim package starting at €1,340. Also includes emergency assist and predictive ACC. Travel assist makes cruising very pleasant. Speed limits are reliably recognized and your driving speed is adjusted accordingly. The system also handles lane guidance with considerable confidence, which should by no means encourage you to distract yourself from the road. Lane changes can also be performed with the assistant on the highway. Tire pressure monitoring is only available as an indirect measuring system as required by law. The test vehicle is equipped with the optional adaptive chassis DCC, which is included with the Sport Equipment package for €960. Pre-configured modes can be selected or the suspension characteristics can be individually varied between comfort and sport with a noticeable spread. In city traffic, the Elroq confidently absorbs bumps such as manhole covers or sideways obstacles with a deliberate single reverberation, providing only a faint muffled acoustic feedback to the occupants. Cobblestones are primarily perceptible acoustically, which is excellent for this class. The Elroq suspension demonstrates its strengths especially on fast country roads or highways. Long journeys can be completed in a relaxed manner, unaffected by the imperfections of the road surface. The comfort mode of DCC does exactly what its name suggests, giving the Elroq a pleasure ride than a Renault Scenic or a Tesla Model Y or an XC30. Meanwhile, in the stiffest setting, comfort is less impressive, but body lean through corners is reduced noticeably. Even without adaptive suspension, though, the Elroq handles well for an electric SUV. It feels far more nimble through quick changes of direction than a Kia EV3 or a Renault Scenic. Plus, the steering is well weighted and the turning circle remarkably tight. During our back-to-back testing, the Elroq proved fractionally quieter at the speed of 120 km an hour than the Kia EV3 and the Renault Scenic. The only issue was a faint flutter of wind from around the door mirrors. As a result, big journeys should be relaxing and stress-free, an important consideration given the Elroq long-distance credentials. At the time of testing, no Euro NCAP crash test results were yet available. Although no significant differences in passive safety compared to the other models offered by the Volkswagen Group on the MEB platform are expected. The list of standard restraint systems on the Elroq is long. Only knee airbags for the front occupants are not available. However, even the center airbag in the front row is standard to prevent a collision between the driver and front passenger or excessive lateral deflection in the event of a side impact on the front row of seats. Bell pretensioners are available on the rear seat for the outer passengers. The headrest of the middle seat in the rear compartment can only be adjusted to a limited extent to accommodate head height. It is simply an emergency seat. To prevent luggage from flying around, there are tied-down eyes in the trunk, which are unfortunately quite hidden and therefore difficult to reach. If the Elroq is unable to prevent a collision with its numerous active safety systems, the standard proactive occupant protection system with rear impact detection initiates preparatory measures. In the post-crash phase, the multi-collision brake integrated standard into the ESP is designed to prevent worse outcomes by selectively braking the vehicle. The Elroq comes standard with dual-zone automatic climate control. The 3-zone version, which automatically detects seat occupancy and deactivates the unoccupied zone to save energy, is available as an option and was installed during the test drive. In automatic mode, 3 intensity levels can be selected and there is an automatic air recirculation function, which automatically interrupts the fresh air supply when needed or if the ambient air quality is poor, and additionally circulates and cleans the air in the interior. While the airflow direction of all vents can be adjusted, the airflow cannot be adjusted independently. There are no dials, so only the vents can be turned off completely. The optional window heating with transparent film is a game changer, especially in the winter months. The standard auxiliary air conditioning is helpful year-round with its heating, ventilation and cooling functions. Heated front seats and a heated steering wheel are standard. Heated rear seats are available as an optional nice to have, as are tinted windows and rear blinds. Four years ago, the comfortable, reasonably priced Enyaq emerged as one of the first wave of Volkswagen Group electric SUVs. But what Skoda has achieved now with the Elroq, itself hardly any more flashy than its sibling, might be even more impressive. This car represents a shift in design philosophy which we like. It is, in its way, as spacious and versatile as any compact SUV in its class, and has plenty of value-adding practical features. Its strength of performance is clear, yet there is no compromise on efficiency, range, drivability or ride comfort. It is intuitive and pleasant both to drive and to interact with a cabin whose ambience has been lifted above the workaday without detracting from its unpretentious character. Is this car exciting or fun to drive? Not really, but it misses very little else.